This is the recording of my learner who is in grade 4.
Page by Vicky Brower. Active Debt. He was an old man who lived at the top of the very right mountain. He had no one with him but his dog named Paige. Size, he was very old in his knees after Olive. He could now go down the mountain and live up again the village people at the foot of the mountain were also too busy to be able to see the old man at the mountain top. Every time he felt lonely, the old man would call Paige in, let him get something down the mountains. That can almost see him first. Paige got him Bandora Monster, said the dog. Here is a gift from the man whose house is full music of. When the old man became alone again, Paige got him something from the village. Next, Paige went down the mountains, and when he came back, he round and saw a monster. He is a gift from the man. Joy's house is full of playthings. Faith said the next thing the bride from the village of the old man were a pet money, a patrol, the music box, which is sad. We also give from the fed people one day. Ruel, the old man, needed something. He'll say that would almost him. Paige Aldi went down mountains from the hillside to west side and around and back again just to find one last thing that called almost his master. Paige take it to the village. People saw the people went up the mountains and soon they said about his house. Around the old man's house, the old man was very happy at take his dog Peach, saying, "You have served me well, you have petted with me village I am placed." Page by Vicky Brower. Active Debt.
Fetch was mispronounced as Petch. The learner mispronounced Becky Bravo as Becky Bravo. The learner also mispronounced adopted as Activate.
He was an old man who lived at.
The learner said here instead of there. The learner omitted the in lived.
The top of the very right mountain.
The learner mispronounced top as tough. Moreover, The learner mispronounced a as da, very as berry, and high as right.
He had no one with him,
The learner said with instead of with.
but his dog named Paige.
The learner did not pronounce the in named. The learner mispronounced fetch again as petch.
Size, he was very old.
The learner mispronounced since as size. The learner said wash instead of was. The learner mispronounced very as berry for the second time around.
In his knees after olive.
The learner substituted end with in. The learner said after instead of often. The learner mispronounced wobbled as wollev.
He could now go down the mountain.
The learner mispronounced could as cold. The learner said now instead of not.
And live up again.
The learner mispronounced climb as clive.
The village people at a foot of the mountain were also too busy.
The learner mispronounced village as village. The learner substituted the with a.
To be able to see the old man at the mountain. Stop.
The learner said avly instead of able. The learner made the word mountain plural, adding s at the end of it.
Every time he felt lonely,
the learner mispronounced every as every. The learner said he instead of he'd. The learner mispronounced lonely as a lonely.
The old man would call Paige in, let him.
The learner mispronounced would as would. The learner mispronounced fetch for the third time as fetch, and is substituted again with in.
Get summing down the mountains that can almost seem.
The learner initially said some, then summing. The learner added s again in mountain. The learner said imos instead of amuse.
First, Paige got him Bandora monster, said the dog.
The learner mispronounced first as force. Fetch was mispronounced as petch for the fourth time. The learner omitted a. The learner mispronounced banduria as banrora and master as monster.
Here is a gift from the man whose house.
The learner did not pronounce the last sound in gift. The learner mispronounced whose as hose.
Is Paul music of.
The learner said his instead of is and Paul instead of fool. The learner omitted of. The learner added s in music, followed by the addition of.
When the old man became alone again,
the learner mispronounced became as become. The learner initially said lo and then alone, Both were unsuccessful attempts to pronounce lonely.
Fetch got him something from the village.
The learner mispronounced fetch for the 5th time as petch. The learner said something instead of something and prom instead of from. Village was mispronounced again as village.
Next page went down the mountains, and when he came back,
The learner mispronounced fetch again. This time I heard page. The learner added s in mountain for the 3rd time. The learner substituted and with in again. The learner said come instead of came.
he round and shook up.
The learner mispronounced brought as round, a as hin, and sungka as suka.
Monster. He is a gift from the man. Joy's house.
The learner said monster again instead of master. Here was mispronounced as he. The learner mispronounced whose again, but this time she said choice.
Is full of playing faith, sad.
The learner said pool instead of fool and plaything instead of playthings. The learner mispronounced fetch again, but this time I heard fate. The learner also mispronounced said as sad.
The next thing, the bride from.
The learner omitted s in things. The learner said da instead of he and browed instead of brought. The learner mispronounced from again as prom.
The village of the old man, where
Village was mispronounced as village for the 3rd time. The learner substituted for with of.
a pet money, a patrol, the music box.
The learner mispronounced monkey as money, parrot as paro, and end as da. The learner omitted a.
Which is sad. We also give from different people.
He was substituted with is. The learner mispronounced said again as sad. The learner said we instead of were and are so instead of also. The learner omitted the plural inflection in gifts. The learner mispronounced different as differe.
One day, Ruel, the old man, needed something.
The learner said who were instead of however. Something was mispronounced again as something.
He'll say that would almost him.
The learner mispronounced else as ill say. The learner said would instead of would. The learner mispronounced amuse again, but this time I heard amos.
Page Alding went down mountains.
The learner mispronounced fetch again, saying petch just like the first time it was mispronounced. The learner said hardy instead of hurriedly. The learner made mountain plural for the 4th time.
From the hillside to west side, in, around, in, back, again.
The learner mispronounced east as il and west as ways, and was substituted with in again.
Just to find one last thing that called almost his master.
The learner said pibe instead of find. The learner mispronounced thing as ting and could as cold. The learner mispronounced amuse again. This time I heard hamos.
Page take it to the village. People saw the people went up the mountains.
Fetch was substituted again with page. The learner said taked instead of talked. The learner mispronounced village again as village. The learner added s and mountain again.
And soon they said about her house.
The learner said said instead of decided, da instead of to, bout instead of built, and here instead of there. The learner omitted s in houses.
Around the old man house.
The learner omitted the apostrophe s that shows possession in man's.
The old man was very happy.
The learner mispronounced very again as berry.
Take his dog Peach, saying,
The learner said a instead of he and take instead of think. The learner mispronounced fetch again as fetch.
you have served me well.
The learner said have instead of have and server instead of served.
You have fetched with me village.
The learner mispronounced have again, but this time I heard heb. The learner also mispronounced fetched as pecked, me as wed, and the as the.
I am placed.
Pleased was mispronounced as place.